And good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm so delighted to speak to Christy and Devin today about their books. Let me get the first slide. Are you all seeing the slides? Yes. The Bakery Dragon by Devin Ilkhurst and Millie Fleur's Poison Garden, but we'll be focusing on Millie Fleur Saves the Night. Am I pronouncing Fleur right? I know
That's right.
Fleur, thank you. Millie Fleur Saves the Night. Christy and I already have something in common. We're both from Georgia and both only children. I was delighted to see that.
Yes.
Only children get a bad rap. Did you entertain yourself with stories as a young child?
Yes, that was my only option. Because I lived way out in the country. It was extremely rural in a time in the 1900s when we didn't have YouTube Kids or the internet or satellite TV, cable TV. All we had was just what came over the airwaves and your imagination.
Sure.
And when school would let out at the end of the school year, my parents would say, go outside and don't come back till September. And so what are you going to do except tell yourself some stories, And so if it's like, that's a cool rock, I could probably make that a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so I know our panel is about scary and spooky things. What types of things frightened you as a child?
I was definitely afraid of the dark. I would run and jump in the bed because if you jump in, I don't know what that does.
Right.
But you're safer, and you just don't ever let your leg hang off the side. It's science. And so yeah, I was scared of the dark.
Yeah. Any other audience members afraid of the dark as children or adults? Yeah, a lot of us, right? So we'll be really interested to see how Millie Fleur saves the night as being afraid of the dark. And Devin, we're working with dragons, where your dragon is not at all scary. Talk to us about just your fascination with dragons and why you like these fictional creatures.
Well, I think, as children, sometimes we fall into categories such as wolf child or cat child.
Raise your hand, children.
And I was definitely a dragon child. I went to Costco and found the Dragonology book, which I've heard still exists today. And I was just obsessed. I would get these big sketch pads and copy dragons from the covers of my books and see if I could draw every single scale with my pencil. And I felt like dragons, I didn't want them just to be enemies. Like, I wanted them to be my friend. So I thought, what if we could create dragons who, rather than being evil monsters, were more like inconveniently large reptiles?
Absolutely. I would love to get into the process. So many author illustrators visualize stories first as opposed to writing on the page. How do you both approach your storytelling?
Do you want me to go first on this one?
Whoever's the bravest today.
So my answer to that is always that author me and illustrator me are often at odds. We're two completely different people, and author me, that girl, writes problems for illustrator me to solve, and illustrator me is often just not happy with author me because those words were great. That was a great idea. Curdled milkweed in the first Millie Fleur book, because that's a cool idea, right? But how do you draw that?
Right.
And then I'm the only one that can solve that problem. So
do you ever have like a back meeting at home? Like,
guys.
Get it together.
Right, we got to get together here, okay? We got to have some solutions at some point.
Nice. Devin, what about you?
I think I've always been a really, really visual storyteller. Long before I was an author, I was an illustrator, and a lot of what I like to do is try to tell a complete story in one picture. A lot of my illustrations are kind of based around how much information can I give so that you can kind of follow through and pick out all the story elements. So for me, it's been a process of figuring out what I can tell with just the visuals, and then figuring out what words I need to add in order to tell the complete story. So for me, usually it starts kind of as a storyboard. I came from the world of animation, so I think very much in snapshots and story beats. So for me, it's usually drawing out what are the story beats, and then what words do I need to contribute to this to turn it into a complete full narrative with characters and dialogue and a storyline you can follow.
Yeah. Well, both of you have very character-driven books, right? Really important characters. Did those characters kind of talk to you at some point and want to be on the page, or was it the story first and then the character was developed through the story?
So a lot of the times when I am supposed to be writing, I'm just kind of goofing off and come across things that make my brain light up, and I think, ooh, and I just kind of stick it in an idea jar.
Yeah.
So for me, I actually stumbled upon a weird bug in the yard, which I think we'll talk about later, but and one thing led to another, and that's how the story developed. But then as soon as I have that spark of an idea, I go straight to character development, because I have to know who that person is in the story and why do we care about her, you know. So the character development doesn't always come first for me. It's usually a spark when I'm goofing off.
Yeah, I love that.
For me, I think that when I was developing the story, I had the idea of a dragon who hoards bread instead of gold, and that was kind of the first nugget. But then I wanted to tie it into an emotional through line that was personal to me. And for me, I grew up with a chronic illness, so I couldn't keep up with a lot of my classmates. There's a lot of things they could do that I was just always falling behind. So for me, Ember, he's smaller than all the other dragons. He just can't keep up with them. That's his reason that he can't keep up with them. But I was able to kind of just put myself right in his shoes. Yeah. And for me, the thing that I was able to connect with my community over was art, but for him, it's baking. And I was just oh, you know what? That's just a perfect little, marriage of our stories.
For sure, I love that. All right, let's get into the process. What kind of bug is that? What kind of bug is that, Christy?
So while my editor thought I was at my desk, I was actually on a panic walk in the yard because when book 1 came out, they said, "We love it, do it again." And I thought, I don't even know how I did that the first time, so I'm gonna just go on a walk. And while I was in the yard, I stumbled upon this guy, and I thought, I don't know what kind of bug that is, and I am insufferably curious, and so I thought, I'll take a picture of him, I'll look him up later. You're on a deadline, stay focused. And when I got back to my desk, I did not open my Google Doc to start my story. I opened up Wikipedia and my bug identifying app, and found out that that's a click beetle. And he looks pretty boring. He has a kind of a cool name. I thought click beetle, ooh, that's cool. And the more I read about him, the more I found out, oh, he's actually really cool. I think you might have a slide of what he does at night. He does this at night. But in the daytime, you've maybe passed by him a million times and never known, because he's kind of boring in the daytime. At night, though, you would have to go out in the pitch black dark, because he's quite tiny, and his little headlights that he makes are quite tiny. And I thought, if you weren't brave enough to go out in the dark, you would miss this amazing guy who just has this cool feature. You'd never know what he could do. And how many times do we pass by people, things, ideas, wonderful sparks, and we don't know what they can do because we're not brave enough to be curious.
I love that.
So then Millie Floor saves the night.
There you go. I love that. You know, you do a lot of writing and dreaming through trapdoors instead of approaching things. I'm the same.
Yes.
I'm the same.
I don't know if it's a great format. You know, it's not super reliable. You know, it's like catching lightning in a bottle.
Right.
But it's
all
all I
so
got.
far.
It's all I've got.
So far. So the lead-in question that I forgot to ask is, what type of research do you all do to create these worlds? So a lot of people, when you're reading books, when you're watching films, they assume that artists can just pull these worlds out of their head like magic, but that's rarely the case. And so for both of you all, and Christy, you answered it a little bit, how do you approach world building research to build your stories?
I love that stage. You know, as an artist kid, me and my other artist friends would always sit around and just dream up worlds. Like ever since I was like 7 years old, I feel like we could spend an entire afternoon just coming up with, what is this world? Who lives there? How do they live there? You know, what are the monsters that live there? And how do, you know, these elements of this creature impact the world that the people live in?
Yeah.
So that part is like one of my favorites. And I love putting in little pieces of, okay, if dragons live in this world, how would they show up in the architecture? How would they show up in the little design elements? Like you can find little dragon motifs in the architecture of the buildings in the same way that we might have like a rooster in ours, because they're just pests that live nearby. So the weather vanes have dragons on them, and all the buildings on the outside of the town are made of brick because we don't want anything flammable out there. I love that part. That part just excites me. I could talk about it forever.
I love it. I love it. And so we're looking at a sketch of some of the dragons in the book.
Right.
Does that happen along the way, or is that kind of pre-production work for you?
So I really wanted all of the dragons to be very unique. I wanted them not to just be like a crowd of kind of identical dragons, but I wanted to encapsulate all the different types of dragons that I've loved since I was little, like ones that look like dinosaurs, ones that look like Eastern type dragons and Western type dragons, and really silly ones and ones that look really cool. I just wanted to have the full spectrum of dragons in this book.
I love it. Raise your hand if you love dragons. Excellent. I love it. So Devin, you've been drawing and painting all your life since you were like 2 years old on Photoshop. It's so amazing. What was the hardest/scariest thing about making your own story as opposed to working and leading an animation team?
You know, I think in animation, we are allowed to specialize, and we can all kind of hold each other's hands, and if there's something that we're not good at, we're allowed to say, I'm not going to do that. You can do that. You're much better than me. But then when you're illustrating your own book, those things that scare you, whether it's drawing a horse or drawing a car, you have to be the one to do that too.
Yeah.
But I actually found that it's been really rewarding, because by getting to the other side of those fears and realizing I can do that, it's made me so much more confident in my abilities as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're looking at right now, you all are seeing a screen of all of the, it looks like the full book. Is this this is not the final art, which is embarrassing for me, because my sketches look nothing like this. So talk to the audience about a little bit about the process and what we're seeing here.
Yeah, those are the color keys. So in the animation industry, like for example, if you've got a movie, you want to be able to see the color beats that translate to the emotions of the whole film. From the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I knew I wanted there to be a color journey through my book where, it starts bright and warm, and then he kind of descends into the gloomy darkness, and then it's kind of the deep golds when you first get to the bakery, and then it explodes into like the golden warmth again as there's kind of this connection at the end. So I wanted to really have that planned out, that color journey planned out the same way that we do for working on an animated film.
Nice, awesome. And where did the story come from? So outside of your love of dragons, how did you connect bread, baking, and gold, and the Ember story?
I feel like we might be kind of similar in that we love to just find like weird connections in the world, but like I love the idea of the fact that like treasure can be all kinds of things. Like for me, my treasures are probably my books. Like I would be a book dragon. I would curl up on my like hoard of books, and I just thought from far away a bakery window looks just like golden treasure.
Yeah, yeah. And Christy, I'm looking at the Lantern Keeper here, who we see in the book. Is this preliminary work? Was this sketching, goofing off?
This was solving a problem that I created for myself in book 1. Because that is what's my process? I create problems.
Yeah.
It's me, hi. So in book 1 with Millie Fleur, there is nary a lamppost. And in book 2, the opening line says, Garden Glen was afraid of the dark. At night, the townsfolk rush home and turn on all the lights. And every house and yard was lit up like the noonday sun. Well, how, Shadra? When there's not a lamppost in the whole town, not a spotlight, nothing. But I couldn't go back because book 1 was out in the world.
Sure.
So we had to figure out a way to light up the night. Now, I did stick in one lamppost. I feel like if people have questions about that, I will say there is a lamppost in the town that you just couldn't see. You just couldn't see it in book 1, okay? But the Lantern Keeper was a problem-solving situation. Mm-hmm. He brought a solution to lighting up the town.
Nice.
But as you can see, my sketches are not like Devin's. And I,
Because we're two different people.
we're two different people, and it's just two different ways to arrive at the end. So,
But you know, Christy, I love so many design choices that you made with this book and how you're carving out the light on the page and using this really deep, really soothing blue as a background. It's just really lovely. Like when you're working on the double page spread, you have to think of inventive ways to lead the eye, and I thought that this was fantastic.
thank you. That one was really a challenge.
Well done. Well done. So we were looking at some of the sketches before, and Christy, I know as an illustrator, I recognize that these are like really rough sketches.
Yes,
and
they're
get a
not
little more
meant for
refined
anyone to
to
see.
see, right? Just talking to yourself, talking to yourself. But you all can see as the thinking, as the conversation goes with editor, art director, ideas become more real on the page.
Yes.
And so thank you for sharing
Sure.
these for people to see. Devin, we just had a backstage conversation about perspective. For all the artists in the room, raise your hand if you love perspective. Devin clearly loves perspective. Can you talk to us about this part of your process?
Yeah, well, so I worked in the background department at an animation studio for 4 years, first as a member of the team, and then I led the team. So doing the backgrounds for this book, like drawing them, I'm like, I am in my zone. I don't even need to think. Like I can put a podcast on. But I mean, in animation, we're constantly taking these really, really rough storyboards and then figuring out how to turn them into a complete world. Like what we get is like a character on sometimes just like a perspective plane or maybe a really rough indication of a door. And then we've got to figure out, all right, well, what world do they live in? What information can we give about the character from, their bedroom? Like you can tell so much about a character from their bedroom. Do they just throw their things all over the room or do they hang it up nicely? What objects have they kept from their childhood? Do they have, a mishmash of different furniture they picked up off the street, or have they coordinated everything really carefully? So it really excites me to design an environment because especially in a picture book where you have such limited real estate, you can do so much world building and storytelling about the characters from what little details you put into the environments. And I know, like, you kids, you notice all of that. Like, when I do book events, you guys are the ones who come up to me and are like, the bell is missing from the bell tower, and then they bring it back at the end. And I'm like, you did notice that. And that's incredible.
So we're just thumbing through some of the sketches and final art here as well. So you can see with all artists, processes are going to be different. And Devin, you're drawing and painting digitally, where Christy, you work with pencil first, or is that digital?
It's digital.
It's digital.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
all
the old
digital.
school. It has to be pencil
But I
and paper
like for
first.
it to look traditional.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Nice. So we're going to get a little nerdy here when it comes to, no, this is a question that I wanted to ask about the character, the dark. And having been a child who was afraid of the dark, what kind of thought went into the dark character as a character in the book?
Yeah, so how many times have you been laying in bed in the pitch black dark and maybe there's like a tree outside your window and it casts like a shadow and your imagination starts to like work out what that shadow is, and then before long you've worked yourself all up and you're all scared and you have to run and get your grown up. I still do that. So I thought, those branches outside the window, what if they're just actually attached to something soft and cuddly and not at all threatening? Mm-hmm. I think sometimes when you can't touch a thing, you can't hold a thing, you can't know a thing, it's just a thing in your head and you can't feel it, it's scarier, And so if you can name a thing, if you can hold a thing, it makes it, it's more disarming. Like you've kind of disarmed that thing. Yeah. You're not scary anymore. You're just the dark, a cuddly creature.
I think, you can name it, you can claim it, and for you, you can draw it, right? You can create it
Make
for
it
yourself.
whatever you want.
I love it. Look at that.
So the dark's not scary. You just have to get to know it.
Right. Who's afraid of that beautiful dark?
Right. She's quite cuddly. And she's actually afraid of them. So that's just another thing to think about. The things you're afraid of might actually be afraid of you. Mm-hmm. So you could just get to know each other and not be scared and be curious instead.
For sure. Now, do you have a moon garden at home?
So we do. We actually grow lots of different things, and moonflowers are one of them.
Lovely.
Yeah, and we also grow Nicotiana, which is a night blooming tobacco, which, you hear that and you think, but it's actually a pollinator plant for our bees. They like it. It has a small bloom, and they have small mouths, so they appreciate the tinier flowers. So.
Nice. I'm still a little afraid of the dark, but this is encouraging me
Yeah.
to try and grow something.
Yeah.
We have a few more minutes. Devin, I just want to talk about, we talked about your use of color a little bit, but emotionally, like what are your warmer colors? And just talk about the emotional beats for well, you did that already, didn't you?
Well, I mean, I can talk about like color and how I use it in the story.
Sure.
Well, I love to think of like light and color as kind of like a character that's always present in the story. And like the way that I use it is so dependent on, I really want the color to put you in the character's shoes. So especially like the paper of the book is actually something that I use to show Ember's kind of emotional state. So when the paper behind the like comic panel type panels is like white or this like light tan color, that's kind of the neutral state. And then when he goes into like the darker, more like gloomy emotional states, it turns into this kind of dark purple. So it's kind of letting us into feeling like we are Ember. And then as he emerges from that, it turns into this dark red. When he's hiding in the bakery, you kind of feel like you're hiding because the panel that you see him hiding, he's surrounded by this dark color. And then as he comes out into the warmth, it turns into this like golden warm. So I really want like readers as they're going through the book to be able to just see that around the edges and have it kind of impact how you're feeling, and so you can feel like Ember too.
Mm-hmm. Now, this piece wasn't in the book.
No.
This was for funsies. Do you work on just one-off illustrations as you're working on books for fun? Are you thinking about what you might do with this after, or just to get to know your character a little bit more?
I think, like bringing it back to like my friends and I always work on projects together. If we're coming up with a project and we're like, we're going to make this a movie one day, one thing we would always do is make a movie poster for it, because why not? That's what you see when you're a kid. So I think this is my take on like, this is my Bakery Dragon movie poster, because I made this thing.
We go see that.
Yeah.
See it. Totally. Just a book nerd here. This is the cover of the Bakery Dragon, and then when you take the case off, you get more gorgeous art. This is actually a lot of people don't see these. Do you all look at the case covers when you get books? Just beautiful. Yeah. What were you thinking with case cover?
So I feel like the case cover is something that I usually look for after I've read a book. So I think it's a really fun opportunity to create an illustration that encapsulates like the end of the story, or like the whole kind of like story all together, which is all the dragons like carrying all this bread that they've made, rather than just like a teaser to get you into the story. So that's what I wanted to do with that.
Nice. And Christy, so yours is this is very feature film feeling, and Christy is very like traditional book telling. And so you get this gorgeous embossed icon of the moon. Talk to us about your design choice. Did you do this, or did you have to ask for it, or did they say you wanted this?
Yes, so Scholastic is actually great about when I ask for stuff. They are pretty
We love that.
agreeable. Yes, so the embossing. The only thing they've ever told me no about was on this book. I want me, my editor, and art director all pushed real hard for glow-in-the-dark treatment. But Sales had a really great point that we don't read books in the dark because we can't see the words. And you have to, so
we get the flashlight under the blanket.
So that one they told me no on, but yeah, I feel like I do all of the cover. I do everything in the book.
The hand lettering as well?
Hand lettering.
Wonderful.
And then I ask for, like, on the flourishes, the metallic treatments and the embossing and the spot gloss. It's all very technical and nerdy, but I love all of those treatments.
I love it.
If there's a treatment that exists, I love it.
I love that. And Devin, are you doing hand lettering for yours too?
Yeah.
Shout out to the hand letterers. That's incredible. Well, talk to us about, are there going to be more Ember books and more Millie books in the future? Can you tell us about the future books?
Yes, so there are going to be more Millie Fleur books all the way until 2029.
Woo!
So there are, in total, once they all publish, there will be 7 Millie Fleur books.
Oh, yes.
So you're not rid of me anytime soon.
And Devin, are we going to see more of Ember?
Yeah, I'm working on book 3 right now, and then I'll go straight on to book 4, and it sounds like they want more, so probably won't be the end of it. You'll see me for a while too, I think.
Excellent, excellent. And wait, Christy, talk to us about Bittersweet. This is your very next one that's coming out, yeah?
Yes, so this one is outside of a completely different vibe than the Millie Fleur books. It comes out in October with Simon & Schuster, and it is nonfiction-ish. Now, all of you book people out there are probably like, that's not a genre. But it is now. It's nonfiction, but the main character is not, she is not someone who existed in the real world. She is a combination of stories told during post-war Berlin, when the U.S. dropped food to the people in West Berlin. They were blockaded. And a guy named Gail Halverson, who lived to be 100 years old and has passed on, he saw some kids at a fence watching the airlift, and he thought, they haven't had chocolate in years. They've not seen chocolate. They've not had sweets. We have all this flour. We have these dried potatoes. We're feeding them.
Right.
But they've not had any joy. And he thought, he was very conflicted by that, because not long ago, the grown-ups in that country were their enemy. And he thought, it's better to feed them than to hurt them. So he dropped candy out of the plane, even though it was very much against the rules. It was not an approved mission. And it turned into so much candy dropped. And those kids grew up and told those stories.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is
that.
timely for now. You know,
Sure.
like choosing kindness is also something that takes courage and can be oftentimes complicated unnecessarily. And he chose kindness.
Beautiful. Thank you. I look forward to reading it. And tell us about the bakery dragon and the fairy cake.
So Ember in book 1, like, he picks up on baking bread pretty quickly. He's a natural, and he expects to continue to be a natural, but when he's alone at the bakery, he gets an order for a cake from a fairy, and it turns out that he doesn't know how to bake a cake, and it is quite a bit more difficult for him than baking bread. So I wanted to show kind of the struggle of someone picking up a new hobby, because sometimes it doesn't come easily all the way through, but there's a lot of value in going to the library, picking up a recipe book, and getting feedback from your friends, and figuring out how to do something the long way. So that's what that book's about.
This has been such a treat. Thank you both for being here today with us and talking about your wonderful work and wonderful future stories. It's been my treat to talk to you backstage as well. And I hope that you all have learned a lot about bookmaking and about these scary, benevolent creatures. And yeah, just thank you so much.
Thank you for having
me.
me.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.